It's a huge pleasure to join this extremely important gathering and meeting. And let me say from the outset that the United Kingdom has been and remains proud to stand up for freedom, proud to stand up for democracy. We welcome the spotlight that this institution, the Human Rights Council, shines on the worst violations and indeed egregious abuses of human rights, and this Council's important work to hold those responsible to account. There is much to reflect upon and indeed comment on, and I welcome this opportunity to address this gathering with a focus on three key areas. Beginning, if I may, with President Putin's continued barbaric assault on Ukraine. And frankly and directly put, this has been marked by appalling violations of human rights. Let us just look at the last week. In the last week alone, we have seen reports from Ukrainian authorities of their soldiers being executed by Russian forces. The Independent Commission of Inquiry has uncovered mounting evidence of war crimes, and including possible crimes against humanity. These range from acts of torture and sexual violence to the killing and forced deportation of innocent civilians. The forced deportation of children as well. It is vital to establish the full facts, of course, and gather the necessary evidence. It is only then that we collectively can bring those responsible to justice. It is also imperative, in our view, that this session renews the Commission's mandate. And if I may, Mr. President, just turn briefly to matters within Russia. I'm sure I speak for many gathered here and beyond, who were all appalled by the news of Alexei Navalny's death, a courageous individual who himself paid the ultimate price, the price of fighting for democracy, the price of his life. And we must therefore hold the Russian authorities fully accountable. I'm sure everyone in this hall today and beyond join me in offering our deepest sympathies to Mr. Navalny's family. And we are pleased, finally, after many requests, that his remains have been returned to them. There must, though, be a full and transparent investigation into the circumstances of his death. And in doing so, we reiterate our call for the release of all those imprisoned in Russia on political grounds. And I put on record specific call on behalf of our Prime Minister, Foreign Secretary, and myself for the immediate and unconditional release of our national, a British national, Vladimir Kara-Murza. And I say to Russia, it is time to act responsibly. Release him, and release him now. I'm also, as part of my responsibilities, the United Kingdom's Minister for the Middle East. And I want to now turn briefly to the situation of the ongoing conflict in that region, in Israel, and of course, the plight of innocent civilians in the occupied Palestinian territories. And let me be clear of our position. The immediate priority must be for the fighting to stop immediately. This is the best route to secure the safe release of all hostages currently held in Gaza, and importantly, vitally, to get desperate life-saving aid into Gaza. And I stress again that this must happen and happen now. We want this cessation. And of course, there is much discussion underway about the current diplomatic efforts of which the United Kingdom are a part, that this cessation must lead to something which is sustainable, a sustainable ceasefire. And what does that mean? And I just want to outline the United Kingdom's clear position on this. A sustainable ceasefire, the crucial word is sustainable. It means calling time on all the fighting. It means no return to further fighting. It means for an irreversible momentum towards permanent peace and the delivery of a two-state solution. I assure all members here that we urge Israel to limit its current operations specifically to military targets. It needs to protect civilians, civilian infrastructure, including hospitals. Civilians being protected in conflict is a red, and it is a must-do. The number of people killed now, some estimates put them as high as 30,000, including those from Gaza itself. But every life matters. From the 1,200 Israeli who were killed by Hamas's terror attack to now the thousands that have been killed in Gaza. Every life matters, and therefore we call on all parties to act within international humanitarian law. Mr. President, the prospect of a military offensive in Rafah, where more than half of Gaza's people are sheltering, 1.2 million people, is a humanitarian catastrophe waiting to happen. It would have disastrous consequences for civilians sheltering there. They have nowhere to go. They can't go north, they can't go south. We must all collectively prevent this. And I assure all of you that we, the United Kingdom, have voiced our strong views to Israel in this respect. Meanwhile, we have also taken further action. There are extremist Israeli settlers who are involved in some of the most egregious abuses of human rights in the occupied West Bank. And from a United Kingdom's perspective, we have taken action and sanctioned these settlers. Of course, and let me be clear, the United Kingdom, as a friend and partner to Israel, supports the scrutiny of Israel. But equally, as many countries did, we come together in deploring the terror attacks of October the 7th. And our efforts here at the Human Rights Council must be to provide the basis for the realization of that sustainable peace. The United Kingdom, to be clear, works to see all countries face appropriate scrutiny of their human rights record, but opposes, as we've said before, just to be clear, the disproportionate focus on item 7, which damages efforts to ensure and achieve peace. But let me end this segment of my comments by saying this. The UK is, has been and will remain absolutely committed to a two-state solution. Myself and Lord Cameron, the Foreign Secretary, have been fully engaged on this priority with our key allies, including the United States, but also our key partners and allies in the region. It is only by working together and collectively that we can guarantee the security and stability that all Israelis and Palestinians deserve. But we must seize this moment. We must generate the momentum now. Why? Well, if there is to be a legacy to all those who have been killed, that legacy must be that their life mattered. That legacy must be that we must move towards a permanent peace. That legacy must be a legacy that guarantees justice, that guarantees peace, and guarantees security for the people of two sovereign states, Israel and Palestine. Mr. President, if I may briefly, just looking across the globe, focus on a couple of other additional matters of which the UK has had a real focus and prioritization. We will continue to press the Chinese authorities to improve their human rights record, including in multilateral institutions, where last year again we had a record number of countries signing up the statement at the Third Committee on Xinjiang. The persecution of over 1 million Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang is wrong, and we must stand collectively against it. In Hong Kong, we urge the authorities to repeal the national security law and release Jimmy Lai. Mr. President, in the time I have, I've only reflected on but 3 areas of wide areas of concern around the globe. We continue to watch developments, as others do, closely in Syria, in Sudan, in Afghanistan, in Myanmar, and indeed other countries where citizens' basic human rights are being denied. Also in South Sudan, where we've witnessed the horrendous cases of sexual and gender-based violence, as well as the targeting of journalists. Media freedom matters. And again, sadly, journalists pay the ultimate price in some parts of the world with their life. It is therefore vital that in South Sudan also, that the mandate of the Commission on Human Rights is extended. Mr. President, let me put it succinctly. Those who violate those rights must be held to account. For our part, the United Kingdom will continue to support all efforts and work most constructively, including this very Council, to ensure that is the case. Human rights, Mr. President, and their protection and strengthening across the world is the ultimate noble objective of this very Council. Defending human rights is not a nice to do. It should not be a periphery. It is fundamental in how we advocate the defending of other rights, of all rights, irrespective of who we are, where we are. Indeed, it is a litmus test. And I end with something that I believe in most earnestly as the United Kingdom's Human Rights Minister, that the real litmus test of defending human rights is not our ability to defend ourselves, to stand up for our own rights. It's the ability to articulate, advocate, and stand up for the rights of others. Mr. President, thank you so much.